The wind over Dravkara carried the scent of plasma and ash. Beneath a sky split by twin moons, the ground still shimmered with heat from fallen warships. Orion Hayes stumbled through the wreckage of what had once been a battlefield between creatures he barely understood. Vast-scaled titans that soared like living comets, their breath capable of melting steel. His freighter had been caught in the crossfire hours ago. His crew gone, his tools half melted, and the silence pressing in like a verdict. Then the silence broke. A roar, low and broken, rolled across the burning plains. He turned toward the sound and saw it, something so massive his brain struggled to measure it. A dragon, its wings torn and scales dull, dragging itself through the wreckage. In its claws it carried another, smaller one, her luminescent veins flickering like dying starlight. The sight froze him where he stood. The male's golden eyes locked onto him with unbearable intensity. "Human!" the creature rasped, its voice like gravel under thunder. "Help her!" Orion's throat went dry. The dragon's voice carried not through air, but through vibration, as though the ground itself spoke. I'm not a doctor," he managed, hands instinctively raised. "I fix engines, not—" "She dies," the dragon interrupted, lowering his head until Orion could see his reflection in one amber eye. "You fix machines. Fix her." It wasn't a command, it was a plea. A sound of despair that pierced something inside him. His instincts screamed to run, yet his hands moved on their own, reaching for the tools still strapped to his belt. The dragon set the wounded female down beside him, her breath shallow, her chest rising with the rhythm of a failing engine. Orion knelt, trembling, as the air shimmered with residual energy from the dragon's bodies. Scales cracked open to reveal faint glimmers of circuitry and bioluminescent nerves. They weren't just biological, they were living machines. And as he touched her skin, a pulse of alien warmth ran through his fingertips. Somewhere in that fading light, he felt her heartbeat falter. "I'll try," he whispered. The dragon exhaled, a sound halfway between relief and grief, and the stars above flickered, as if holding their breath. Inside the broken shell of his workshop, Orion dragged every intact tool he had toward the dragoness's massive form. The walls groaned beneath her weight, sparks flared from shattered lights, casting her metallic blue scales in pulses of ghostly color. Each beat of her weakening heart sent a tremor through the floor. Orion's hands shook, but his mind had already shifted into problem-solving rhythm. That mechanical trance he entered when something too complex to fix demanded to be fixed anyway. He activated his remaining med-drone, though its software protested violently. "Unknown biological parameters," it repeated in a loop until Orion smashed the speaker with a wrench. He reprogrammed it manually, feeding in crude readings from his portable scanner. What he saw on the display made no sense. The dragon's blood was saturated with microcrystalline structures that refracted light like data conduits. Her bones emitted low-frequency electromagnetic signals, as if alive with dormant circuitry. She wasn't just a creature, she was a biological reactor, one step between life and machine. Valeth, the surviving dragon, stood motionless near the doorway. Every time his claws scraped the metal floor, sparks scattered like fireflies. "She is fading," he rumbled. "I know," Orion muttered, sealing a cable to a vein that pulsed faintly with light. "Her heart's losing charge, not blood. You said she breathes plasma, right? That means her system runs on stored energy. Maybe like a reactor. If I can stabilize it—" "You speak of her as a machine." "She's both," Orion replied quietly. He scavenged components from his wrecked ship, coolant tubes, thermal regulators, a broken plasma coil. With trembling precision, he assembled an improvised stabilizer that hummed weakly when powered. The alien energy flowing through Sarath's body began to synchronize with the human-made pulse. Then the hum deepened. Every loose tool in the room lifted for a heartbeat, weightless, as if gravity itself bowed to the merging of two technologies. Sarath's chest glowed softly beneath Orion's hands, the dying rhythm of her life steadier now, almost responding. Valeth lowered his head until his massive eye hovered beside Orion. "What are you doing to her?" Orion stared at the flickering data on his wrist console. "Something that shouldn't be possible," The air vibrated with a deep electric hum as Orion connected the final conduit. The improvised device, a fusion of scavenged ship parts and alien components, now throbbed beside Sarath's chest, its translucent core glowing with pulses that mirrored her faint heartbeat. The smell of ozone filled the room. Every time he adjusted the power flow, the metal floor trembled, reacting to the unstable energy field she emitted. "She's absorbing it," he whispered, watching the energy signature on his wrist display. Her bioluminescent veins flickered in erratic patterns, like data streams rebooting. He increased the voltage by fractions, careful not to overload the circuit. "Come on, come on!" Valeth's claws dug into the metal walls, leaving deep scars. "If she dies, she won't," Orion cut in, his voice low but steady. "Not if this thing works like I think it does." He'd realized the truth hours ago. Sarath's body wasn't just alive, it was engineered. Her organs acted like reactors, her bloodstream carried conductive crystals, and her breath was raw plasma emission. The dragons weren't simply evolved, they were designed. Perhaps long ago, perhaps by someone else entirely. The implications made his mind reel, but there was no time to wonder. He rerouted the stabilizer's current, channeling human energy systems into alien life functions. Sparks rained as a surge of plasma arced across the room, striking the ceiling. Alarms screamed. The workshop's emergency shielding flickered but held. Then, for a single impossible second, Sarath's body levitated a few centimeters from the ground, her wings spreading weakly as light bled from every scale. Orion stumbled back, shielding his face. The glow faded to a deep, steady pulse. His display stopped flashing red. Vital signs, faint but stable. She's holding," he breathed. Valeth leaned close, eyes reflecting the human-made glow within his mate. "You did this!" Orion collapsed to his knees, exhaustion flooding him. "We did this." Outside, thunder rolled across the Drav-Karan sky. Only it wasn't thunder. It was the awakening of something ancient, resonating in response to the union of metal, blood, and will. When Orion woke, his body felt as though it had been drained of every molecule of energy. The stabilizer still pulsed faintly beside him, its rhythmic glow synchronized perfectly with the dragoness's breathing. The air hummed with static. Outside, Dravkara's twin suns were rising, painting the sky with spectral hues that bent strangely, as if light itself was being distorted around the workshop. Then he realized why. A faint vibration, almost musical, echoed through his skull. It wasn't sound, it was thought. He sat up sharply and saw Sarath's eyes open. Pools of molten silver, calm and ancient, but undeniably aware. Her gaze fixed on him. Human. The word wasn't spoken. It resonated in his mind, carried through the same field that powered her reconstructed heart. He stumbled backward, clutching his head, but the connection only deepened. Images spilled into his thoughts. Memories of alien skies, battles fought beyond nebulae, the grief of losing entire broods. She was showing him fragments of who she was. Valeth stirred beside her, his massive form casting moving shadows. "You hear her?" "Yes," Orion managed. "Through the device. My tech must have synced with her neural network. It's broadcasting through my implants." "She lives because of you," Valeth said, his voice trembling in a way no creature that size should sound. "Our healers could not have done this. You mended her with—" "Scrap," Orion forced a weak laugh. "Guess I'm good with broken things." Sarath shifted slightly, her scales gleaming where alloy met flesh. The faint seams of human metal pulsed like veins of light. She was no longer entirely dragon, yet more alive than ever. Her thoughts brushed his again, soft and curious. "You bound our fire with your machines, and you did not break." The connection flared for a heartbeat, and Orion gasped as he saw her world. Crystalline cities, floating citadels powered by stars. Then it vanished, leaving him trembling, staring at her in awe. Something new existed between them now. Not just survival, but understanding. The ground outside trembled before Orion even heard the first roar. He had just finished recalibrating the stabilizer when the signal hit his console. Not mechanical interference, but a transmission. Multiple sources, high frequency, layered. The dragons were coming. Valeth froze, his pupils narrowing into sharp vertical lines. "They have sensed her awakening," he said, voice rumbling with a mix of awe and dread. "The elders will not see it as life restored. They will see corruption." Orion's mind raced. Through the link that still tethered him to Sarath, he felt her rising strength, her plasma heart stabilizing into a steady hum. But beneath that vitality flowed fear. Not for herself, but for him. The others would never forgive the presence of a human inside their sacred domain. The sky split open with motion. 3 enormous shadows descended, wings blotting out the light, their bodies covered in radiant armor that reflected starlight even in daylight. They landed with seismic impact, metal meeting metal. These were no feral beasts. They were hybrids too, part machine, part myth, but untainted by human design. One stepped forward, eyes glowing faint gold. "Valeth," it thundered, its voice echoing through both sound and mind. "You have bound your mate with alien circuitry. You bring dishonor to the brood." Sarath rose slowly, her wings unfurling in shimmering defiance. The seams of her repaired chest glowed with soft blue light, the unmistakable mark of human creation. "He saved me," she said, her words resonating across the plain. "Where your healers failed, the Outworlder prevailed." The elders hissed, their armor plates shifting like blades. Orion felt the temperature spike, his hair standing on end as static filled the air. He stepped forward, every instinct screaming to retreat, but his voice cutting through the tension. "You can call it corruption," he said, "but you're standing in front of proof that your rules can't save everyone." Lightning rippled across the sky as the dragons roared in unison. The battle for truth had begun, and Orion realized that the machine he built to save one life might ignite a war across an entire world. The storm passed not with fire, but with silence. The dragons who had come to destroy now stood motionless, wings lowered, eyes reflecting the impossible fusion before them. Sarath hovered between worlds, neither pure dragon nor machine, her new heart glowing with both human circuitry and ancient plasma. The air shimmered with residual energy, forming patterns that pulsed like constellations across the sky. Orion stood at her side, his body weak but his resolve unshaken, his human hands marked with faint lines of light where alien energy had touched him. Valeth turned to the gathered elders. "You came to judge," he said, his deep voice carrying through the static-laden air. "Then look upon what you call heresy and tell me it is not life." One by one, the dragons extended their senses toward Sarath. Her thoughts reached them like a wave, calm, luminous, unyielding. Through her, they saw the moment of death and the spark of rebirth, the human who refused to accept the end. The oldest among them lowered his head. "What we feared was corruption," he murmured, "but what we see is evolution." Orion exhaled shakily, the tension bleeding from his body. He hadn't come to change a civilization, only to keep a promise to a desperate creature who had asked for help. Yet here he was, watching the boundaries between species dissolve under the light of a rebuilt heart. Later, beneath a sky scattered with twin auroras, Orion prepared his ship for departure. Sarath stood beside him, her wings folded close, her presence radiating warmth through the cool air. "You gave me a second life," her voice whispered in his thoughts. "Now let me give you a future." He smiled faintly. "I think that's something humanity has to build on its own." As the engines roared to life, Valeth and Sarath rose into the sky, twin silhouettes against the horizon. Their scales shimmered with both organic light and human alloy, a living testament that the line between worlds was never as fixed as anyone believed. And as Orion's ship ascended through the glowing clouds, he looked back one last time, knowing that somewhere in the endless night, 2 hearts now beat with the same impossible rhythm.